In January 2004, we have a new mayor who defeated the previous mayor, who did run against him. She lost, he won. And the new mayor announced that Assembly Square was his #1 priority. And his actions over the next few months and into the present, he's still the mayor, he's been reelected, showed a real change in the city administration's posture toward resident input around Assembly Square and around other issues too. This is just one example I'm giving you. In short, Mystic View Task Force and the residents it both incorporated and represented had become a key player with whom officials, developers, and the new owners of the land at Assembly Square, including Home Depot and IKEA, came to understand that they needed to actively negotiate in an ongoing way, not simply make decisions and wait for them to push back, but to involve all groups in the process from the beginning. As the stalemate over the second lawsuit continued, the new mayor announced in May 2004 that he had gotten funding from HUD, U.S. Office of Housing and Development, Urban Development, to support the redevelopment of this area. 4 months later, in September 2004, the city issued permits for several stores, which are in the background, although it's hard to see them, and big step toward bringing plans to reality. The huge national developer Federal Realty Investment Trust, locally affectionately known as FRIT, purchased all of the square's property, all 146 acres. So FRIT now owns this. On October 2005, in another key victory for Mystic Task Force, the mayor announced that he wanted to take the credit. A wise voluntary association allows the mayor to do this, at least that was their view, announced that he had, quote, broken the logjam by making a deal with developers to incorporate the concerns of community groups, mainly Mystic Task Force, for affordable housing, open space, and better pedestrian access. By April 2006, further negotiations with IKEA by the city and Mystic Task Force led to an agreement to move the IKEA store away from the river so that that part of this site could be saved for residential and green space. Worn down by the task force repeated success with legal appeals, all parties now sought a collaborative, less oppositional relationship. As a result, Mystic Task Force, IKEA, FRIT, the big national developer, entered into a formal process of three-way negotiations with two appointed mediators, one appointed by the city, one appointed by the residents. And this went on from began in June 2006. And as those negotiations continued, the state of Massachusetts Law Appeals Division announced that the Mystic Valley Task Force had won its second lawsuit. Remember, that was still in process. And the Mystic Law Appeals Division agreed with the task force that the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection had erred on ever conditionally issuing IKEA to build on the river in the first place. By now, IKEA, which is a socially responsible, known as a socially responsible corporation, IKEA had already voluntarily, sort of voluntarily, agreed to move its site. So the decision was a bit of an anticlimax, but nonetheless, further affirmation for Mystic Valley Task Force. In 2007, January 2007, 7 months after the three parties had sat down at the table together to try to come up with an agreement, Mystic Valley Task Force, IKEA, and FRIT jointly announced, it was quite a dramatic press conference, that they had all three signed a formal, final document to limit the negative environmental consequences of the proposed development and to ensure that the retail development, IKEA, Home Depot, etc., there is going to be and is the beginning of a mall here, makes way for more valuable mixed-use development. All parties agreed to the IKEA off-river site. IKEA put in initially $15 million to supplement for a new subway station so that the traffic would be managed a bit. So, 10 years. Remember that Mystic View Task Force was formed in 1998. 10 years later, the more public process that they set out to create was in place.